What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name is Cameron, and today we have a very special episode of Quick Sips. As you can see, I have nothing else up here on the table with me, no bottles, and that's because I don't really have anything I could put up here from my collection that's really gonna compare to what is inside of this sample bottle. So with that said, what I'm going to be reviewing today is the Mr. Sam Tribute Whiskey batch number 2. Now I know that this is kind of a weird bottle, right? A lot of people have never even heard of Mr. Sam Tribute Whiskey, and that's because it is another ridiculously allocated Sazerac product that most of us are never going to have the opportunity to try. In fact, the only reason I have this sample here is because a local bourbon bar here in Columbus, I guess they got a bottle of it. There was a state lottery for maybe restaurants. I don't really know how it works on their side of things, but because Ohio's a control state, there was a state lottery for a couple of bottles of Mr. Sam. Who knows who won those bottles, but this place had one of them. I saw a post on Facebook about it, and the fact that they were selling it for $40 an ounce, which is honestly not a bad price for this stuff. We'll talk about that in a second. So I went over there. I actually had a pour at the bar with my wife and with my mother-in-law. That was pretty neat. And then I ended up being able to bring a 1 ounce sample of this home to try here on video for all of you. It's probably the first and maybe only time I'm ever gonna be able to do a review of this stuff. So I'm just looking forward to this. It's just not a bottle you see every day. So let's talk about what Mr. Sam is, in case some of you out there are wondering. This again is the second batch of this product. Again, it's a highly allocated Sazerac release, and what they've done here is they've blended American whiskey and Canadian whiskey. These are presumably very highly aged stocks of both. It carries the kind of made-up distinction of being a tribute whiskey, and there's a whole story behind the Mr. Sam label that you can read about online. I'm not going to go into that here. But again, it's a blend of these high-aged stocks. It's assumed that on the American side of things, they're using BTAC level barrels, really, really good stuff. And on the Canadian side of things, they're using, again, just highly aged, fantastic Canadian whiskey. And when they put those together, they get this Mr. Sam Batch 2. In terms of proof here, we're looking at 122.6 proof or 61.3% ABV. Pretty much a perfect proof point, I should say. And I think that's all we really need to talk about here. Full disclosure, I've already poured this sample out one time and I've nosed it. I didn't take any sips of it, but I wanted to kind of get it into a glass, acclimate myself to it a little bit, and that was a few days ago. And now I'm going to be pouring this out and probably drinking the remainder of this sample on video for all of you. So I get one shot at this. Any mistakes or screw ups or anything like that, they're going to stay in this video. It is a quick sip, and I've probably got like 25 milliliters of this stuff to go around. So let's go ahead and pour this Mr. Sam. I kind of want to save myself some for later, but it would be such a small amount that, let's go ahead and enjoy this stuff. I'm gonna coat the glass very nicely. I tend to do this with just about any whiskey I'm drinking nowadays, but when you coat the glass, you really kind of, get any negative or weird smells out of the glass. Like if you put this thing through the dishwasher, or if you've dried it with a paper towel and you have any residual smells, I just try to get the whiskey in there, coat it all around, and I don't know. It's gonna give you the best nosing and tasting experience there. All right, guys, here we go. We're gonna check out Mr. Sam Tribute Whiskey batch number 2 on the nose. So right away, this is actually a pretty hot whiskey. This is only clocking in again at 122.6 proof, but it smells like it could be like 125 to 130. Yeah, it feels like the Canadian whiskey here, which I would assume probably it's probably a Canadian rye, I would imagine. That Canadian whiskey feels like it was either a heavy portion of the blend or that it's just kind of leaning in that direction, because you're getting a very spicy, almost kind of floral quality to this. Right, but as your nose acclimates, you're starting to get into some traditional, highly aged Sazerac notes. You're getting those kind of candied dark fruits that we all sort of know and love from all of the different Sazerac releases. On this particular whiskey, I'm getting some nice butterscotch notes. Yeah, some nice cinnamons. Again, that's got to be coming from that Canadian component. It's really, really spicy. Wow, but as you continue nosing it, and because this is a hot whiskey, if you get the nose or the glass away from your nose, you can start to really dig into a lot of the sweeter, kind of nuanced notes that this whiskey has. Yeah, there's like a raisin bread quality, almost like a Cinnabon, really like a Cinnabon note in here, where you've got that really decadent, sweet cinnamon, but also that vanilla icing on top. Almost like some pecan pie, and pecan is also a note that you tend to get in some different Buffalo Trace products. Yeah, overall, I'm not blown away by the nose. I think when you, again, get your nose away from the glass, it certainly improves here. But it feels a little out of balance, actually, on the nose, leaning more towards that Canadian profile. But in situations like this, when something feels a little hot to me, sometimes it rounds out a bit. Once I get it on the palate and I go back to the nose, you kind of acclimate to it, and so we're going to see if that's the case here. So cheers. Let's check out Mr. Sam here on the palate. Wow. Wow. Holy crap. Oh, guys, I have goosebumps. Wow. Okay, so the best word to describe this whiskey is enveloping. Like, it hits your palate and it takes over. It's commanding. It's like getting on Space Mountain. If you guys have ever ridden Space Mountain, like, there's no time. You're not second guessing anything. It takes over, and you're on that ride. That is exactly what this whiskey's doing here. Again, the opening to the palate feels a little bit hot. I hate to say it. That's my one knock on this whiskey so far. The opening to the gosh, I cannot talk today. What is going on? The opening to the palate feels a little bit hot to me, but once it kind of calms down and starts to go into the mid palate, all of that Cinnabon, like maple syrup, again, that pecan pie, just rich, decadent, like dessert and pie notes. I mean, I don't know how else to describe this thing. Like ooey gooey caramel filling in a pecan pie, and this butterscotch note, this really sweet butterscotch note. It's not necessarily that dusty 1980s National Distillers butterscotch, but it's delicious. All right, let's go in. Actually, you know what? Let's not do a second sip. Let me re-nose this thing and see if it's gotten more approachable here. Yeah, there it is. It absolutely knocks off the heat once you've had this thing on the palate. Oh my God. What a neat whiskey, I mean, it's just cool to try something that's completely different. And this thing has that Canadian feel, almost that light whiskey type feel with those butterscotch notes, maybe even a little bit of sweet honey, and I don't want to say corn, like it's not young feeling, but there is a certain grain quality to this that reminds you a little bit of that light whiskey type thing, that dessertiness, I don't know what the word is. And then also stuff that reminds you of kind of like an Eagle Rare 17, which I know not many of us have tried, but just think of Eagle Rare, but sweeter and, like on steroids, basically. Just a lot of sweet oak and dark fruit. Yeah, this has a beautiful oak profile, very, very sweet, very balanced. Yeah, it's a great whiskey. So let's go back to the palate now for sip number 2. Wow. Yeah. This is really good stuff. And it's one of those whiskeys that, like, I hate that I'm even talking right now, but I don't want to make you sit through me just chewing on this stuff. But it's a whiskey that you can just sit and chew on. And yeah. Wow. It's great. It's fantastic. And I think where this thing shines, where this thing truly shines, is from the mid palate back. Like, once you get to the mid palate and all of these kind of sweet, doughy notes, dessert, pie, candied dark fruit, sweet oak, once all of those kind of collide in the mid palate and then start to roll back into the finish, that is where this thing really shines. The finish lasts forever. I'm serious. And I think it's because of that Canadian component, where that might take a little bit away from the nose, it adds to the finish. And I think that's, you know, when you're blending something like this, you're trying to weigh a lot of different qualities here. And while it is a slight trade-off, it's some really good stuff. Now, we need to talk very quickly about the price here. It's a $250 whiskey. That's the MSRP. And if you ever find it for that, buy every single one, you know? But the secondary value of this whiskey is sitting somewhere around $3,000, I think, or maybe $3,500. And that's stupid. I mean, that is ridiculously stupid. It's good whiskey. And from what I hear, batch one may have been a little bit better, a little bit more well-rounded, maybe less towards that Canadian profile. I don't know. I didn't get to try it. Even if batch one was 20% better than this, you know, what's the most I'm going to pay? I don't know. Based on exclusivity and rarity, the fact that there are so few bottles of this, you might look at this as a real special occasion, and you might pay anywhere between the $250 MSRP all the way up to $1,000 even. I mean, it just depends on your budget. It depends on, you know, how much money you make, all those kinds of things. I know for me personally, when I think of a bottle at this level, $500 seems to be like my max. MSRP doesn't always tell the whole story, especially when you're talking about a bottle with the rarity that Mr. Sam has. But I don't want to say that this is a life-changing whiskey necessarily. I might rethink that. I don't know. But as I'm tasting it right now, it has a very small balance issue. It is fantastically delicious. That sounds extremely pretentious, but that's what I would say. It's a great whiskey, but it is not a $3,000 to $3,500 bottle. Let the flippers flip those all day. And if you miss out on this, it's not going to be the end of the world. I promise. All right, one more sip and then I'm going to wrap this thing up. Yeah. It's getting sweeter and sweeter on each sip here. That last sip was really kind of Buffalo Trace, like Eagle Rare. Again, Eagle Rare 17. It really kind of had that profile there. It's good. It's really, really good. But I don't think there's anything else left to say. If you ever get the opportunity to try this whiskey at a bar, maybe you pay up to $50 for a pour, maybe 60. I wouldn't go much above that. You know, if they're asking for $100 or $120 an ounce, which is what the secondary value kind of commands for this, I've got to pass on that. You know, I don't think anything is really worth that amount of money, and especially this Mr. Sam. But I've gone on long enough about this. This was supposed to be a quick sip, but I wanted to take enough time, because it's the one and only time I'm ever going to get to do this video, to really, really dig into this thing and give you kind of my full impression of it. It's good. And that's it, guys. So if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications to find out when I'm dropping new content and when I'm going live. And also check out the Drums and Drams Instagram page, which is now kind of back in action. I've never really done too much over on Instagram, but there's a lot of great stuff going on now. I'm doing some reviews, some content over there, working on my photography skills, all that kind of stuff. So go give that a follow and check it out. If you want to support the channel, there is the Drums and Drams Patreon page. Doing my best over there to build community, make it affordable for everybody, and give some exclusive behind-the-scenes content to really kind of, give you a peek behind the curtain of what goes into all of this, and give you a reason to support the channel. So I think that's all I've got, guys. Until next time, I'll see you later. I'm going to save this last little sip. So instead of taking a final sip, I'm just going to say cheers, and I will see you next time here on Drums and Drams.